Hey there, Sherry here. Welcome to 2 on Tuesday. Each week, I share a powerful 2-minute tip that, when implemented in your business, will have a dramatic increase on your productivity, your revenue, and the ease and success you enjoy in your business. Today, I want to talk about domain names. So, what is a domain name? Well, it's simply that little line of characters that you add into a browser bar in order to get to a particular place on the internet, right? So, your company URL is a domain name. So, mine, for instance, is resultspartner.com. It's what you enter in at the top in that browser bar. So, if I enter in facebook.com, the internet is going to take me to the web page that's assigned to facebook.com, right? So we've all been to facebook.com and it opens up the page. So it's just the address that your web page lives at. Now, a lot of times people ask me, what's the difference between a domain name and a URL? Well, the fact is there really isn't any difference. It's just the same way to say two different things. So let's talk for a minute about what URL should you buy. Well, I am of a mind that every entrepreneur should own two URLs that are the most important, three actually. One would be your business name. So mine is resultspartner.com. That's the first one you're likely to buy. But the two other ones, the first one is your given name. I believe that every entrepreneur, even if their business name is not their given name, so a lot of times it'll be like sherrykauffeldcoaching.com, you should own your given name.com. So I own sherrykaufelt.com. I simply redirect anyone that would go to sherrykaufelt.com to my main company page, resultspartner.com, right? So if you have a name that is fairly common and your given name isn't available, you can always search for adding your middle initial or something like that that actually gives you your given name, or doing something like sherrykauffeltcoaching.com if you want to have your given name kind of coupled with what you do in your industry. When you get big and everybody out there in the world knows you, you're going to want people to be able to find you by your name, right? So do it now, don't wait. Okay, that's the first one. The second URL that I believe everyone should own, I'm going to give you a few examples here, but the first one is the one that I believe is the most important. And that is, as coaches, consultants, and professional service providers, almost all of us do some kind of consultation. We're having people schedule appointments with us. So my strong recommendation is that you buy the domain, something like connectwithsherry.com, schedulewithtom.com. Connect, schedule, those kinds of words connected with your name. So that when you are talking to a client or potential client, you can tell them, hey, want to schedule on my calendar, just go to schedulewithsherry.com. Now, I have schedulewithsherry.com that I use in some examples, and I have connectwithsherry.com that is usually what I use from stage. So if I'm doing, whether it's a virtual interview or I'm speaking from stage, and I'm offering a free session at the end, I can simply say, if you'd like to hop on a call with me and talk more about what I've been sharing with you today, go to connectwithsherry.com. Okay, can you see how that would be valuable versus having to give someone that long URL that you might get if you're using something like Calendly or Acuity Scheduling to schedule your appointments? It's a real time saver, and it's branded, which is what's most important to me. You want to make it easy, branded, and be a time saver, right? Okay, a couple other ideas for you to consider. Second one is, if you use Zoom a lot, it's a pain in the butt for your client staff to remember what your Zoom ID is, whether they have to use a password, all that kind of good stuff. So you can buy the URL Zoom with Sherry or Zoom with Sally or whatever your name is, .com, and use that so that all that information is contained in the redirect, and you can send people directly to your Zoom link and have it open up for them and they're ready to go, right? So much easier, as long as they've got Zoom downloaded, of course. So that's another one I use all the time. I use it in my emails instead of that long Zoom Connect URL. I use it from stage sometimes, all kinds of different things. Now, a couple other ones. You may want to consider creating a URL out of your program names. So if you have one signature program that you're selling all the time and you've got a sales page for it and a whole funnel built around it, then it may be worth you buying the domain name for that program. So I have a course called the Rapid Enrollment Formula. I own rapid-enrollment-formula.com. So if I am doing a launch around that course, I can have that be the main page that I'm sending people to learn more about the course. Okay. And then the last one I'll share with you today is, if you have a signature opt-in page. So if you have one primary opt-in page or free gift that you're giving out all over the place, again, mostly when you're giving it out virtually, or you're giving it out in person, or you're giving it out in talks, then it can be really nice to have a special URL just for that opt-in page. So those are 4 examples for you. To pick one of these, my first choice would be to pick the schedule with and fill in your name. But the other 3 can be just as valuable in a lot of cases. Now, people always say, okay, where do you buy them? Well, the answer is there's hundreds of places you can buy them. I happen to have all of mine on GoDaddy.com, but frankly, that's because I've been buying URLs since 2000, actually probably before that. And GoDaddy was very, very popular back then, still is, but not quite so much. There's all kinds of other websites out there that you can buy domain names. All of them are perfectly fine as long as you get one that's reputable. Once you've bought the domain name, then what do you do with it, right? Well, basically, the long story short is you redirect that long URL that you're wanting to avoid having to give to people to that new domain name. So let's head over to GoDaddy, and I'll show you what that looks like for me. Okay, so here I am at GoDaddy.com, and you'll see GoDaddy.com is the main URL that I have up here in the browser bar. Now, this is also where you would go if you were going to buy your URLs from GoDaddy. So let's just say that we were going to do schedule with Sally. You put schedule with Sally in there. GoDaddy's going to go out and see, is schedule with Sally owned by anyone else? And if it's not, which in this case it's not, so if your name is Sally, get this one quick because it's going to go, I'm sure. You can see that you can buy it. You can go to the cart and actually buy it. Once you actually purchase the website, then you're going to need to go into your account for where you bought your URL and change some settings. So let's take a look at what that looks like. Okay, so here's all the list of the domains that I own, and I happen to own a lot of them. So let's say that I was going to redirect Bucket List Entrepreneur. It's an email, it's a web address that I bought recently for some specialty work that I'm doing. Let's say I wanted to redirect that, and I was going to have a special scheduling link for that. All I want to do is hit this little button called DNS, and I don't even know what DNS stands for, but basically it's the settings that you're going to use for your domain name something, domain name settings maybe. So we're going to open this up, and then we're going to scroll down to this bottom section that says forwarding, right? And all we have to do is click on add. Now you've had an option of domain and subdomain here. You're wanting to forward the actual domain. So you're wanting to tell it, where should I send anybody that puts in Bucket List Entrepreneur, where do you want to send them? So you click on add, and you simply put in the website address that you want to forward that URL to. So in my case, let's say I'm doing a scheduling link through Acuity. I can just pick this one, and I put in that URL, that really long URL for my Acuity scheduling link. I put that in there. Then I click on permanent. Most of the time you're going to want to do permanent because it's a permanent forwarding that you're doing. And then the setting is really important. You have 2 choices here, forward only or forward with masking. Now what that means is if you hit forward only, then when someone puts in that URL that you are redirecting, it's going to let the settings change to show the URL address that is behind that main address. So let me say this differently. If I was forwarding Bucket List Entrepreneur to this Acuity scheduling link, there's 2 options. When I type in Bucket List Entrepreneur and the internet does its thing, when that page loads, you can either choose to have it just forward to that link, but then show my long Acuity scheduling link in the browser bar, or you can do what's called forward with masking, where it's going to stay Bucket List Entrepreneur and it's not going to show the user what website is behind that website that you forwarded, right? Now here's why it's important. Up in the corner, you'll see this little padlock. That's what shows your user that it's a secure site, that you have what's called SSL protection. It's just a security protection that lets people know that your site is secure and that it's less likely to have a virus, frankly, okay? There's a lot of security consciousness now. So when you just buy a domain and you don't have a hosting platform behind it, it's quite likely you're not going to have an SSL certificate. So it's always going to be http.schedulewithsherry.com or bucketlistentrepreneur.com. And if you use forward with masking and that URL doesn't change, then you're not going to have this little padlock up there. It's going to show that that site is not secure. When the fact is it is, because it's Acuity Scheduling, which is an HTTPS site behind it that they're actually seeing. So if you do not have an SSL certificate on the URL that you are forwarding, then you are always going to want to click on forward only instead of forward with masking. So let me show you an example. So if I go to, you can just see what this looks like. So for me, schedule with Sherry, or I'm going to use actually connecttosherry.com. I don't have a security certificate on that. So I have forward only on this. So if I go to connectwithsherry.com and I forward that, you can see that the web address up here at the top changes to a secure site at your.resultspartner.com, right? And when they go there, they're going to be pretty confident it's the right place because I've got my logo, of course, and you can see, they can contact me. Everything says Results Partner, so it's going to be congruent, and that's probably not going to cause any problems. And that's it. So first you just buy your domain name and then redirect it on your site where you bought your domain name, and you'll have an easy way for people to find you on the internet. That's it for this week's 2 on Tuesday. I'll see you next week.